Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. I started going to church when I was 13. When I did, I thought the pastors were the wisest people on planet Earth, more wise than I had ever seen before. And I wanted to be wise like them. So I became a pastor. And then when I became a pastor, I'm like, I think I missed a step because I don't think I'm as wise as those guys. And so then as a pastor, I started looking up to leaders who had their masters and multiple areas of study. And I thought to myself, okay, those guys are so wise. I want to be just like them. Okay, well, I completed my master's. I've got multiple disciplines. I've got training. And I'm like, okay, I think I missed a step because I still don't feel like I've arrived at wisdom. Exactly at what point, at what level, with what expertise will I finally reach a point where I can say, yes, I finally made it. I'm finally wise. Man, I'm in my 50s now. I'm running out of time. Okay, what about you? Who do you look to as people who are wise? And what about them would you like to emulate so that you too can be someone who's wise? This video is based on my interpretation of Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. And in this text, I think that we get a glimpse of what wisdom is and how we get it. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. These are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Their purpose is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, to help them do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance, and by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. In this video, here's the direction I'm taking. I'd like to share with you two things that are jumping out to me in the text about wisdom. I think there are two lessons here that, in my opinion, are essential for all of us who have a desire to grow up and finally one day find that we are indeed wise. And this is funny for me because on the inside I'm kind of laughing to myself that I know I'm going to have to show up into a group of peers and then lead a discussion about how to become wise. And 100% of the people there are going to know that I haven't arrived because it's easy to see my immaturity and my foolishness is at times really hard to miss. Guys, I got nothing. It's going to be the blind leading the blind this week in our Zoom meeting. So make sure you sign in for the Zoom meeting this week so we can have a talk and kind of like iron sharpens iron, we can make each other wise. So you don't just happen to listen to me. But here's my interpretation of this text. First of all, I think one of the big things that we need to pick up on from these opening verses in Proverbs, which is known in the Bible as the book of wisdom, is this point here. Becoming wise is endless becoming. Oh, there's a proverb right there. I did my best to give you a proverb about the book of Proverbs. The text says, let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning of these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. Here's an illustration. I'm a pastor, sort of. I don't go by the title pastor. I haven't actually liked the title throughout my career because people have an expectation for me that I know I can't live up to. And for others, it just creates this awkwardness and drives people away. So I don't particularly like the title pastor, but I do know something about the title pastor that's relevant. Pastor isn't actually a title. It's a present profession is how to understand this. You can't carry the title pastor if you're not actually doing the job of pastoring. It's not like earning your doctorate and then you get the title doctor. And regardless of a person's career after receiving their doctorate, they will always be able to call themselves a doctor. Even if they turn into a bum sitting on their couch just playing board games or video games all day long, they still have earned the title doctor, and they can have it forever. Pastors, it's not true of the title pastor. You can kind of think of it like this. Pastor is pastor does. If you're not doing the work of the pastor, then you're not really a pastor. So just an illustration for the point that I think this text is trying to make to us. So forget everything I just said about being a pastor. Here's the illustration where I was going with it. I think what this passage is telling us is that wisdom isn't a title to achieve. We never arrive. Wisdom isn't a goal. It can't be a goal because we never arrive at it. Here it is. Wisdom isn't a goal to be obtained. It's the humility to receive instruction. A wise person is a learning person. A wise person is a person who keeps themselves in process. A wise person is a person who doesn't think they're a finished product. It's that kind of humility. Wisdom isn't a level. It's not a title. It's not like I've leveled up to now the level of wisdom. It's the forever state of being in process as a learner, becoming, and staying humble about where I am right now. That's wisdom. I mean, it sounds exhausting to me. Wisdom is an endless pursuit of discerning our deficits, also becoming more than we are all the time. Simply put, how's this? To be wise is to be a humble learner. I think that that's what the text is telling us about the nature of wisdom. Here's what's also standing out to me in the text as an essential lesson about wisdom. Endlessly becoming, which is what wisdom is. Wisdom is endlessly becoming. Endlessly becoming starts with submission. The text says, the fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Where the first lesson had to do with humility, this one has to do with submission. In my opinion, we don't have to be afraid of God. For those of us who call ourselves Jesus followers, we don't. In 1 John 4:18, the text says, there is no fear in love, but for perfect love casts out fear. It doesn't make sense for the Bible to tell us to be afraid and also to not be afraid. Unless there's something else going on here, unless this is a puzzle for us to unpack. And it is a puzzle for us to unpack. We don't take this at face value. This is in the book of Proverbs. This is a puzzle for us to unpack. Don't just take this and say, okay, now I need to love God and know that God loves me. I also need to be terrified of God because he might do something terrifying to me. So I need to live with both realities. This is a puzzle. We need to puzzle this out. Here's why the fear of God is the very first principle of knowledge, wisdom. We understand this by looking through the eyes and experience of a fool. This is the key to unlocking this puzzle here. The fool rejects the idea that there is knowledge outside of himself. The fool considers himself or herself already possessing all the knowledge they need for life and for passing on to others. The fool refuses to submit to others, particularly as a learner. The fool wishes to be his own authority. What's in the best interest of the fool? The fool needs to be afraid because disaster is coming. Fear is in the best interest of the fool who doesn't want to find themselves in a place of submission. The fear is the beginning of wisdom because our starting place is the fool. One of the reasons why it's so hard for us to discern this puzzle is because we don't see ourselves in the starting place of the fool. The first step away from being the fool is to submit to God to avoid disaster. Now, if you're a Jesus follower, then you have already acknowledged that you have been in the place of a fool. And now you're thanking God that you're not in that place anymore. You have submitted to God. So it's a little backwards thinking here to put ourselves back into that role of the fool. But remember, the fear of God is just the first step. It's not the end goal of wisdom. It's the first step of knowledge. If you've been a Jesus follower for decades, verse 7 is quite puzzling. If you have recently become a Jesus follower and are now learning how much God loves you, verse 7 doesn't make a lot of sense. It's hard to keep both fear and love for God in the same brain. Well, if we want to make sense of this, in my opinion, we need to tap into some humility and some memory, recognizing that regardless of where we are on our journey, we are still in the process of becoming. And we need to tap into some of that submission that helped us to connect with God in the first place. Submission to God is the first step away from foolishness. It's not the last step. There's no last step of wisdom. It's just the first step. It's not the deepest step. I mean, in a lifetime of steps, it's really not about deep and shallow steps. It's about consistent steps. This is just the first step. And there are no later steps of wisdom until that first step has been captured. The very first step toward wisdom and knowledge is submission, acknowledging an authority above yourself and above everything else. The initial step into wisdom is fear of God, which leads you into coming to this understanding that God is love and actually is offering you friendship. Okay, so here's a summary. Here's the summary of everything the Bible has to say about wisdom in a nice, neat little package so you've got something to take away with you. Show up on Sunday and listen to what others are saying, because I can't package it up that nicely. The people who come out on Sundays, y'all know more than I do about wisdom. But this is the one little thing that I have for you. Wisdom, in summary, wisdom is the humility to continue learning, and it's what comes after the initial submission of becoming a Jesus follower. I think that that's a good summary, in my opinion, of the first 7 verses of the book of Proverbs, which we say is the book of wisdom. Okay, that's it from me to you for now. Would you please like, would you please share, would you please subscribe? And ask for the link. I'd love to have you part of our conversations. We meet at 1:30 for anyone who wants to show up. We meet at 6 o'clock p.m. just for men. For community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. We'll see you next time.